Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show today. I'm really excited everybody could join us. So today with us is Tim Allison. Now, Tim's a lifelong entrepreneur, business coach, best-selling author, and host of Screw the Naysayers podcast show. So at age 31, Tim walked away from a six-figure income and moved to a tiny fishing village in Nova Scotia, Canada. The Naysayers laughed when he said he was interested in starting an educational software company, but they stopped laughing when sales topped $10 million. So his life philosophy is simple. Know the life you want and have the courage to live it. And he's also, as I mentioned, the author of Screw the Naysayers, which is one of the coolest books that I've seen, which we'll dive into and talk a little bit more. Tim, welcome to the show today.
Hey, Ty, thanks very much for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I think your book is actually Screw the Naysayers. They suck anyways.
That's it. It was my daughter, who's all of 30, so a little bit ahead of my age, that came up with the tagline. But I mean, I thought it was pretty cool, and it's my life philosophy too, eh?
Well, that's cool. Speaking of which, I mean, what is it about? So, what is Screw the Naysayers all about?
Yeah, so it's I guess if you had to narrow it down to an underlying theme, it's first and foremost about exposing the systems and all the crap that we've got floating around in our society out there that are setting people up these days to, just settle, to not really understand or even question what it is they want for life. By the time our kids graduate from school, we've given them their society's definition of success, and they hop on the corporate ladder or whatever it is, and they start chasing goals that other people have met for them, or set for them, I should say. And so that was the underlying thing. And the other thing that was, I think the passion behind the whole thing is that I really got pissed off, Ty, at a lot of the language that's out there that's coming from my generations and yours as well. I mean, that's looking at the millennials and looking at, I hate all these labels, Z and X and all that kind of stuff, but looking at young adults and saying, calling them entitled and lazy and all this kind of stuff. What I see is an education system, a compliance-based education system. We go to school, and what do we tell our kids? Sit down, be quiet, behave, follow instructions, and wait for instructions, And so their purpose is to do that. Then their purpose is to get into a good university, college, get an education. So they've got that purpose, and they proceed and they get that. Then the purpose is to get this great job that they've been told will be waiting for them. Now, the stats are crystal clear. Those jobs for most people aren't there anymore. I mean, the most recent stat I saw in North America, both Canada and the United States, 50% of adults under the age of 30 are either underemployed or unemployed. And so they're going to have to get out there and create their own opportunities. We've done a horrible job of teaching them how to do that, because you don't find opportunities, by just sitting back and waiting for instructions and not challenging conventional wisdom. And we've also surrounded them with a belief system that says failure is bad. Don't go out and try anything, because if you do, bad things happen to you. So these kids, and I say that from my age, they're these young adults, a lot of them are getting screwed, and I just think it's not their fault that they're living at a time. We were chatting just a bit before we went live here about the changes of technology and all that. It's not their fault that they're living at a time where the workplace has been so dramatically impacted by technology, and the pace of change is accelerating, man. It's just exploding in terms of the nature of the workforce, and 50% of the jobs in the U.S. by 2020 are expected to be in short-term gig economy type things. So the whole framework of what they have to live in has changed. There's massive opportunities out there, because it's never been easier to start a business or to grow a business, but we've conditioned to think it's impossible. And so that's what got me angry and reflecting on things, and sort of really try to start a movement through conversations like this and with like-minded folks.
Yeah, and you hit on a bunch of great points, right? I mean, they're kind of destined. They're on that wrong course right from the beginning. I mean, we don't even talk in our schools about running businesses, starting businesses. And in doing so, it is inherently very risky. So if we're teaching them not to try to do things to fail, and not even talk to them about running businesses, we're putting them on the path for failure anyways, not even giving them a chance to succeed.
And I hate to be, I'm not a guy that's into big conspiracies and all that kind of stuff. This is not who I've been through my lifetime. But let's face it, the education system that we have was designed in the framework came out of the Industrial Revolution. And the purpose was to create obedient employees that would show up and be punctual to do repetitive tasks and to make a lot of other people a lot more money, eh? And we haven't fundamentally changed the way we're teaching our kids, and there's not a lot of incentive for the people that have a lot of money in this world to change that, because businesses. Do you think businesses don't enjoy the idea of having? They complain that they got too many people applying for these job openings, but we know what that does. It drives down, the cost. I mean, the new entry-level job is, why don't you come work for me for a year for free? These internships, that's the new entry-level job. Gee, that sounds like just a great. And that's after you've gone and spent $100,000 or $200,000 to get a university education, which is also this massive big business. I mean, we are headed towards a tsunami of change. And I just think that a lot of people are sleeping through it. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of parents are sleeping through it. And we need to snap them out of it so that they can start to make sure that their kids are much better prepared. And start challenging some of the assumptions. Like I love the value of education, of knowledge, but the price that we've attached to getting that knowledge and the return that we get on it when we get into the workplace is out of whack. I mean, if you want to be a nanophysicist or a doctor, and gosh, we need all these people. There's not a lot of, there will be new choices. I mean, virtual reality and everything else is going to impact the way they learn that stuff. But if you want to get into marketing or real estate or software development or app development or, any of these kind of things, I'm no longer convinced that, that traditional route with the time and dollars attached to it, can be justified. But then we've got this, we've never had a generation of young people with so much anxiety. Like, and it's because, like, you hit on it, Ty. I mean, we're telling them that failure is such a bad thing and to never take chances. And the choice of the words naysayers, the reason I'm on that cause is because naysayers are their strongest whenever you hit on an idea that, that's a big dream. That's something that you might really, really want to do. It might have nothing to do with money. I mean, sometimes people think because I walked away from that, that big figure job, 6-figure job, that, that I don't like money. I like money. I like it a lot. It gives me a lot. I travel the world with it. I do lots of things with it. I don't want to be a slave to it, but we've got to find a way to deal with this uncertainty, this anxiety, and accept responsibility that we created. We as a group created this. And darn it, I think we've got an obligation to be trying to contribute to solutions.
Well, Tim, do you feel that these naysayers really are succeeding in holding back entrepreneurs?
Yeah, they do. They do all the time. And I want to give you my own specific example of, I ended up fighting through it. But I mean, so there I was at 31 years of age, and one of the top paying selling jobs in Canada, which is where I'm from. And but I did walk from that, because it was killing my health, and I had 2 young kids that I wasn't seeing. I won't get into all the reasons for leaving. I had to. But we moved to this tiny little fishing village in Nova Scotia, which is where my wife's from. And I said to everybody, I'm going to start an educational software company. Now, this was before the internet. I mean, the looks I got from people when I said that, that this is what I was going to be all about. I said to myself, screw them, I'm going to do it. But then I sat there, and honestly, for about 3 years, I let all that negativity get into my head. And so I realize now, you don't see these things. This is the great thing of, when you get a little older, you can look back with some distance and you see some clarity. I had been grieving the loss of my career. I grieved the loss of my career for almost 3 years because I sat here thinking, accepted what everybody told me, that I had thrown away my career. The price of, committing to be a present parent and raising my family in this community, and it's something we desperately wanted to do, was that I had sacrificed my career. And my goal now is to make enough money to put food on the table and to pay the bills. And I said that, for almost 3 years. And guess what? I made enough money to put food on the table and pay the bills and not a dime more. And that negativity. So the scary part is that even when we're not aware that that stuff's getting into our head, it does. And it was really only, I had the blessings, Roy was from just outside of Boston, Roy Zabert, rest in peace, Roy. But, a guy came into my life and we came into a business collaboration together, and he just sort of looked at me and said, "What the hell is wrong with you?" And the example he gave me was this, because I was sitting there saying, well, I'm trying to grow this software company, Roy, but I'm sitting here in this little fishing village in the middle of nowhere. Every time I show up at a meeting, people expect me to come in rubber boots and, a yellow hat or rain hat or something like that. And he said, "Tim," he said, I don't know whether this is true today, but he says, well, it wouldn't be because we do everything online. But he says, "I mail my American Express payment every month to a place in North Dakota." He said, "I don't know where North Dakota is. I don't care how big or small it is. That's just where the bill came from. So why are you so hung up on the fact that you're in this little fishing village? You're a smart guy. You know what you got a lot of knowledge and everything." And from that moment on, instead of saying why not, I started asking, well, what if? And it seems like such a subtle change, Ty. But I got really bold in some of my asks. I went to the company that Roy was working with was a $200 million corporation headquartered in San Diego. That had an amazing software product that they had probably spent tens of millions of dollars to build. It was a program to teach literacy and numeracy skills to reading, writing, and math to adults. And I went and Roy had shown it to me, and I knew a lot about the technology. It was awesome, but it was no value here in Canada because you guys still do the imperial measures. We have metric math. You can't teach math if you don't have that. The reading lessons, and there's nothing wrong with this, but the reading lessons were also teaching these people to be good Americans. There were exercises about the U.S. Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and what's life is like in the barrio and stuff like that. So before I met Roy, I would have said, well, great product, but there's just nothing I can do with this. And I just sat there and I said, well, I wonder if I could figure out a way to hire some Canadian teachers to take some content. And I literally went down and I told them, look, I'll go through your program screen by screen. I won't make you change a single screen. I'll just give you a different picture to put in, and I'll give you different questions to put into your test spaces and everything. So no coding, just content. If I do that, could we partner and sell this? Would you let me become the national distributor for this country up there? And I'm thinking, no chance, eh? Oh man, they said yes. $10 million later. If I had stayed in that spot, I was telling myself, nah, it's too big of a dream, and so they get to us in so many ways, and so often we don't even know it. That's the problem.
One of my mentors taught me, it's really pretty cool, and he wrote a book about this when it comes to educating kids, which works very well in adulthood, which is instead of when somebody says to you, I can't, then you change it to say, well, what would have to happen so you could?
Exactly.
And it is astonishing on how much different that change in mindset, because all of a sudden you start saying, well, look, in order for me to do that, these things, and you start constructing the solution to the problem. Exactly. And so is that really what it is all about, to overcome these naysayers and press forward?
It's certainly a huge part of it. If you get to that point where when ideas pop into your head and you first have to be super aware of that little voice in your head that starts killing ideas before you even allow them to, get out there. But if you do that and you start, what would have to happen for me to do this? Or what if this was possible? These kind of things. Yeah, that's self-belief. Here's the thing that drives me crazy, Ty. We this, I know this, and this is not a secret. What we believe is a huge determinant, of what's going to actually happen in our life. And it's not exactly a new thought. People have been saying that for a very, very long time. And yet we're still having these discussions. We're having such a hard time as a society, as individuals, accepting that. And I put that back on our education system. I put it back that we start squeezing that out of our kids by the time they're 6 years old. And if they don't do good on something, imagine when you're in high school and you're thinking of, everybody's saying, well, you got to worry about the best grades so you can get into the best university. And you think, I always struggle in chemistry, or I always struggle in art or whatever, but I kind of want to try it. What's the advice you're likely to get from a guidance counselor or a teacher? or your parents. Unless you really need it, don't do it, because it's going to bring your GPA down, and then you might not get into the right school. I mean, it's so frustrating that we see things. And the other thing is we keep telling people that, pardon me, that the goal in life is not to leverage our strengths, but to identify our weaknesses and then spend all our time trying to fix those weaknesses, which any entrepreneur will tell you is the exact opposite of what you need to do if you want to succeed. Focus on your strengths, build your strengths, leverage your strengths, and hire or collaborate or whatever. I mean, and the system I have conversations with educators all the time, and they're always talking about the newest this and the newest that, as if they've got it all. It almost needs to be blown up, and started fresh.
Well, I think it's interesting because I do a lot of research into personality profiling, and I think it's interesting because, like growing up, I'm a leader. I'm a natural born leader. It's my personality. And I think, and I've known this for a long time. When I look back at my education, it was sit in your spot.
Exactly.
And I should have been, if my teachers in education system would have recognized that this were by trait, they would have put me in leadership positions. But instead, they didn't want me in leadership positions because, I was the rebel, right? And I see that in my daughter too. It drives my wife crazy because she's a rebel. She asks why. She wants to know the why. You could just see the entrepreneur traits in her, and very hard child to raise, right? Because they are rebellious. But when you recognize that's in them and you give them those opportunities to lead and excel, they do. So I completely relate to what you're saying, having little kids, because my 7-year-old will sit where you are. She'll be told that her entire life. Yeah, exactly. And then it relies on us as parents to say, look, you don't sit where you are. You get up, you stand for what you stand for, you lead. So it's interesting. Now, a lot of this and a lot of what you talk about is also along the line of happiness. And I think you have this really cool thing called the 7 attributes of a happy entrepreneur. So you dive in and tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it, sure, man, it really comes down to I guess we have to all recognize there's so many different ways to make money in this world. So, and anybody who tells you that running your own business or being an entrepreneur is easy, or that it's not going to take a lot of hard work and all that kind of stuff, they're not at least living in my world. It's a lot of hard work and everything. So I felt for a long time that if we're going to go through this, this experience that can be so joyful, you want to make sure that you're enjoying that ride. A guy that I've come to know recently is a guy named Tim Sallow, and he talked about, instead of work-life balance, I'm going to answer your question, but I want to get this in because it's so cool. We hear this phrase work-life balance all the time. I mean, it's everywhere. And he says, that's crap. You should be talking about work-life harmony, because we are one, eh? And it's about making sure that there's all harmony in it. And I encourage you to look him up on LinkedIn, Salaau. Neat little guy, African-American, 24 years old, brilliant IT guy. But anyway, so that's kind of at the core of it. But so look, I believe that, first of all, a happy entrepreneur has a very clear understanding of what it is they want in life. And we don't set our goals. When I say this part, it drives people crazy. I mean, I've never had trouble making money. It doesn't mean I've got infinite amounts of it, because when I need it, I make it. But the reason is, I think that ever since I left that corporate rat race where the entire focus was on money, I didn't set my goals in financial terms. I set my goals around the things that I wanted to achieve, in life. And so, I wanted to, on a personal level, I wanted to be a present and good parent, a father, spouse, husband, all that kind of stuff. That meant that if I was going to have run my own business in Canada, our kids play hockey, and that's a weekend sport. If I'd stayed in the corporate world, I probably would have missed 50% of my son's hockey games because I was traveling all over the place. I still traveled, living where I was. I had the travel to run my business, but I just set a rule for myself: I will not miss one of my kids' sporting events on a weekend because I'm out of town. If my business can't afford to fly me back on that Friday, then I won't go. And those were the days. I don't know whether you're probably old enough to remember, but those were the days of the family busting policies of airlines, because they were all doing this. If you stay over a Saturday night, you got like 60 or 70% discount on your fare. They wanted people to fly on Sundays when their planes were empty. So, you'd be there your business meeting would end at Friday noon, and your employer would say, no, you're going to stay. We'll put you in a hotel for 2 nights, give you nice dinners and a trip to a ball game or something like that. And we're still going to save money, No, you come home. So you really have to define, I call it, our core values. So, I go through an exercise with people, write down the phrase I value at the top of a page, and just sort of make your list, and you'll go through it, and might be sentences. Mine are family, friends, health, respect, integrity, and giving back. And so now I know that if I'm going to run a business, I can't do anything that conflicts, with any of those core values. There'll be compromises, but I can't. If integrity is important to me and you offer me $1 million, but I know it's not ethical, I can't take it, those kind of things. So, it starts with knowing what you want. It evolves to, I haven't been in this space for a bit, man. I should have asked you exactly what we're chatting about. But then it comes down to, crap, Ty, man, I've lost it.
Well, no, that's all right, because I think you brought up a good point. It's interesting how many people I see in life that just don't know what they really want. They don't know where they're going, and that's astonishing to me, because I sail boats and I fly planes, and in both of those, like, you never leave unless you have a clear idea of where you are going, and you have a clear plan with 5 different ways to map it to know that you're on the right trajectory to get there. But in life, I think that, like you said, I think one of the problems with being happy is that people don't know what makes them happy. They never sit down and try to figure that out.
And that's triggering a couple of thoughts. The biggest challenge young people have with that whole issue is that there's not an understanding, and this is something, again, that we should be teaching in school and we don't. But the way we experience and perceive happiness changes, over time. So when we're a child, initially it's when we get what we want. We cry and scream and we get our food or all those kind of things. That's experiential. But very soon in our childhood, then it starts to go, and certainly at school, it moves over to external validation. If we do something good at school, the teacher and your parents say, you're a good boy, good girl, and everything. If you bring home a good report card, parents are notorious for, rewards and financial treats and all these kind of things. But nobody rewards us if the opposite is true. So we learn that if people praise us, it feels good. If people don't praise us, and employers, then we get to university or college. If we go that route, it's the same deal, eh? Our success is tied to how people measure our academic performance. Employers know this. And so this is why we've got things like in the sales world, they'll be rewarding you with rewards trips, and, and why there's so much focus on job titles and all this kind of stuff. So that's why a lot of us in our 20s get caught up chasing, people tell us that we should be doing these things and we just go chase them. And it doesn't feel right. It starts to not feel right, but we're not intuitive enough to understand that we're actually not happy, because everybody keeps telling us that we're doing great. I know you don't like the job now, but it's going to get better. And everybody has to go through this. Just give it time and all this kind of stuff. What has to happen for us to truly become a happy entrepreneur or a happy person is we've got to break through that phase of reliance on external validation. Sadly, there are people that I know my age that are still caught up in looking for external validation. They want, you've met them, they want praise, they want to be told how wonderful they are. They're easy to manipulate because all you have to do is flatter them and off you go. The faster we move through that phase and start to look at the things that we actually want. And so that next stage is when we start to look for that work-life harmony, when we start to ask, sure, I like money, but I don't like money at any cost. Yes, I want to work, but there's, just because I'm good at something doesn't mean that it makes me, happy doing it. And then other people come into our lives and we start integrating, partners and spouses and friends. And we're trying to figure out, and that's where most people start to realize that happiness is defined not through specific achievements. If we measure achievements as when I have, I'll use your example. Tell me if I'm wrong. But if the achievement was the moment that I finally got enough money to buy that plane equals happiness, I think the happiness is not that exact activity. It's all of the things that, the journey that you're getting there. And then when you get in the plane, it's all of the things that you're experiencing as you go do these things. But we tell people that happiness is, well, you wanted that next job promotion. You work your butt off and you get that promotion. Guess what? You're no happier. Because, it's not,
and that's a big problem that I've seen as well, is that, people define happiness based on accomplishment of these goals. And then what happens is they accomplish the goal and they're not happy. And then that's very disturbing to them because that's not what they anticipated. You just hit on so many great points, because that's one of the things I believe too. You have to have a goal. You have to know where you're going.
For sure.
But then you equally have to have boundaries of what you're not willing to do and willing to do to get there,
Exactly.
So I'm the same way. I became an entrepreneur because my parents worked all the time, and I'm so blessed that they did, but I wanted to be there for my kids, their sporting events, etc. So that was within my boundaries. The time I will work, the time I will spend away from my family, I think that's extremely important. I've been just read a book by Annie Duke about thinking in bets, and she talks about something you reference as well, which is that, when you make a decision, if it turns out good, everybody praises you. Things went well. You assume it was a good decision just based on the outcome.
Exactly.
But if you make a decision and things end up badly, you're ridiculed. That doesn't mean the decision you made was right or wrong. It's just we tend to kind of think that, hey, these decisions that turn out well, these conservative decisions I get praised for, and you kind of society almost pushes you down that path, because even when you make good decisions and take risks and they turn out badly, well, then you're ridiculed. And so the whole system, like you said, is rigged to ultimately get you to not take those risks.
And of course that does loop back to your happiness as a business owner too, because if you don't want to take those risks, then you really you aren't able to get the kind of business or achieve the kind of things that you want to do. Like people are telling me, again, here I am 60, people are telling me, man, you are insane. I'm out there spending money. I have an employee working for me this summer. I'm not making any money. I've started this podcast. I'm getting up and working fairly long hours doing these kind of interviews, and my mission in life is to inspire young adults, teens and young adults, to expect more from life, to challenge them to define how they look at success, and to talk to people like you and others to make sure we share what we know about an entrepreneurial mindset. That so that the failure example you gave is like, if you want to have any chance of having real meaningful success in business and happiness, you have to accept that you're going to fall down many, many, many times. And if we get depressed every time we try something and it doesn't work, then, that's the why. The number one reason, I researched this a number of years ago in Canada, but I'm 100% sure it's true everywhere. The number one reason small businesses fail is not bankruptcy. In fact, the number of bankruptcies is really pretty small. The entrepreneur just gives up. They've started something, and what we know, when they started, they dreamed big. They really wanted it. But when we see these stats about all these businesses that have failed, most of them happen because the entrepreneur just can no longer take it. That the cycle of not getting what they want and not being able to deal with the setbacks and not knowing what to do about it just gets inside their head, and it's just it's such a societal problem.
Well, what things lead to that? I mean, what causes, these entrepreneurs to basically sabotage themselves? They're basically creating almost sometimes their own barriers, or how do they get past that?
Yeah, well, I mean, see, for starters, I mean, one of the big problems is that if you're working your butt off and not making a fair return on it, that gets to you. I mean, when we first start our business, we all do that. We all work really hard, and this is just the way it is. But you get into it after a while. So, I mean, I think among other things, you've got to surround this is another one of the attributes coming back to me. You've got to surround yourself with people that support and believe in you, and that are able to help. I mean, there's almost no problem in business that can't be solved and that hasn't been solved, as long as you can figure out what the problem is and then try and ask from it. But I mean, or ask someone that's gotten through it. But you and I both know that the world of business now is for the most part all about I don't know whether the word fail is right, but this fail often and fail fast philosophy is valid. I mean, you get an idea, you don't spend a whole year trying to figure out whether it's a good idea. You figure out, how could I validate that idea? How could I test that idea? What's the minimum viable product, or what could I do to get out there and do that? You put some effort into it, and if it doesn't work, you don't feel bad. You say, okay, I got closer. to finding the one that will work. Because if one thing I've learned in 35 years of running my own businesses is that, for the most part, some of the projects and products and services that I was most excited about and thought for sure was going to make me, millions of dollars, turned out to be duds or just middle of the road. Where you, and honestly, for example, that one that I had out of the park that got me going, I even pursued that on a flyer. I honestly, it was like, it seems too crazy, but what the heck, so it's we have to free ourselves to plant lots of seeds, to try things, and collaboration is a big part. But don't you agree? Like, if an entrepreneur comes to you asking for advice, or has ideas, if they put in the time to earn the right to ask for the question. I don't mean go on to LinkedIn, find somebody's name and immediately send them a question on you want, all this kind of stuff. And unfortunately, we're all getting those things. But if you take the time to get to know someone, entrepreneurs are some of the nicest people in the world. And most of them, and we want to help. I take joy in when I see other people succeed. It makes me feel, really good. I just want you to show respect and to
Well, I think, I agree. I think if you're humble and you really are eager to learn, that the most successful entrepreneurs I've ever met are very eager to help. Yeah. They just want people that don't think they know it all. And they want people that genuinely acknowledge that, hey, look, you've been where I haven't. Yeah. I want to gain that knowledge and experience. Would you mind sharing? And I agree. I think most are very big to openly share. But I'm back on this topic of, how do entrepreneurs find out what they really want in life? It seems so simple, but like you said, they're distracted. I want a jet plane, but they don't think of why they want the jet plane. Why do you want the jet plane? I want to go to these places. Well, why do you want to go to those places? Well, I want to take my family on vacations. And then it ultimately boils down in that to, I just want to spend more time with my family.
Yeah, that's it, man. You've
so
got to keep the whole process
you themselves,
Yeah, I didn't mean to, but the whole process you went through was just magic, because what you just kept drilling deeper. When you're trying to get back to, people don't like that word core values, but it's just got to be. I don't mean values in terms of, with any kind of spiritual context or anything else, just the things that you value, but the things that are inherent to you. If you just keep drilling down, every time you say you want something and you say, well, why do I want that? If you just keep asking that question you asked, you will eventually get down to the base root. Like, I want to spend more time with my, with my family. I want and then when you start thinking about your business, like, I really encourage people to think about what they want from a business. So if you have the freedom to start a business from scratch, I know the focus is always on, and once you get going, it will be entirely on your customers. But just this once at the beginning, design the darn thing around what it is you really want. Well, what do you want? Well, I would like a business that gives me flexibility of scheduling so I don't miss my son's sporting events or my daughter's sporting events. Okay. Do I want the freedom to be able to work anywhere? Like, because there are people that are, those kind of jobs. Yes, no. And ask yourself those questions. Now, will you necessarily get everything on your wish list? I don't know. But I mean, that in terms of what you want, you start there. And if you've got clarity, and that's how you quit proof your goals. Because if you say, well, these are the things I'm working towards, I'm not going to give up on things that I care about. Like, if you really care about something, and that's what you also have to ask yourself, what do you really care about? What causes are out there? What things frustrate you? What would you like to see changed, in the world? And if you get around some of those ideas, you don't quit on those. You might change the how. We spend way too much time in our businesses talking about the how. How will I achieve? I was talking on my show quite recently to an amazing young woman who's she went through a very traumatic experience as a teen, and was, because of the relationship with her parents, they loved her dearly, but she just didn't have the kind of relationship where she could talk to them, so she never told them about it. And she carried that secret, and it was a pretty devastating thing. She carried that secret for over 20 years. And going through corporate life, and was miserable and was unhappy, until finally one day, looking in the mirror, she realized that she had that experience was just eating away at her, and that she had to, acknowledge it. And she actually went on LinkedIn and did a video to her friends and spoke about this really awful thing. But now she's started her own business. It's called Family Time. I'll give it a little plug. I mean, she's starting an app that's designed to help parents and kids communicate And it's like, it's around getting kids when they're young to learn how to express their emotions to their parents. So it's a little reward system. It's a little game, almost a game that, okay, how is, once a day when you come home, spend 10 minutes and answer 3 or 4 questions, and there's smiley pictures or whatever. So how was school today? And the moods or emotions aren't words like happy, sad, or whatever, and then why? And so there might be some things you could draw on, or you could type your own thing in or whatever. So I don't know whether it's going to be, achieve what she wants or not. But what I said to her, I said, Purvi, no matter what, I know your why is never going to change. What you want to achieve in terms of improving the communication levels, between parents and kids will never ever change. It's too important to you. That's your mission, now, and it. This may be the how, and it may be 27 other different things, and other people may get involved in doing it. So if we know what we would like to achieve, that's big. And then, the other thing is, I think we make what we want, in terms of the kind of business, we make it too difficult to figure out. I mean, the beauty of the internet right now is this is slightly off topic, but I think it's relative to, I meet so many young entrepreneurs in particular who are trying to dream up the next best thing that nobody in the world has ever thought of. And they think in order to have a business that they could be happy and that could give them all those things that they want, that they've got to come up with this genius idea that nobody else has ever done. And of course, the odds of any of us being the Bill Gates or the Steve Jobs, I'm not saying they're not out there, but, they are extremely rare. The reality is that in this gigantic world of ours, most everything's been thought of. We now have the power of sitting down and surfing around the world and find other people that look like they're living a happy, cool life. And doing things if your hobby is something to do with flying, well, what are people doing there? If you're into, kite surfing or sea kayaking or whatever interests you, go see what people are doing. And there's an amazing amount of information out there to spark ideas. And I think if we sit there and we think that we're supposed to have this revelation, my purpose is, and I'll just know it on the first day. Well, for most of us, it took years for that kind of stuff to evolve. So start with things that you enjoy, and working with people. Another thing to be a happy entrepreneur, it's all about working with people that you like and respect and that like and respect you. I mean, for me, I knew that I had finally made it when I was able to say that. I started turning business down. I didn't tell them why. I just said, I just don't think we're a right fit. But I mean, sometimes those were 6-figure contracts. I don't care. I was at that stage where you're too big of a pain in the ass. And I know you're going to have a very negative effect on my life. I'll be coming home at night when I want to be spending that time with my family, having the barbecue or at the lake. And I'll be, thinking about an argument I've had with you or you've had with one of my, I can handle it. But, you're the kind of guy who berates my staff or something or doesn't treat them well. I don't need you, go.
Tim, it's been amazing having you on, man. This has been really cool. I mean, we're talking about the values and happiness and, kind of some of the problems that hold entrepreneurs back and how to remove those barriers. As we wrap up, what's kind of your parting advice? What are the things that, if you could tell somebody 1, 2, 3 things that are some of the most important lessons you've learned to press forward, to get what you want out of life, to get what you want out of your business, and to really achieve what you define yourself as your own level of really being happy, of really being of happiness, what would be your advice?
So, I mean, the first thing is to understand when it comes to, defining what's going to make you happy and what you really want in life, there is only one opinion in the world that counts. I mean, I know we have relationships and everything else, but you have to know in your heart what it is what you really want. So, commit yourself to looking at what those core values are, what's really important to you, and they won't change. Once you get going, they will not change. So that would be the first thing. The second thing I think that I put down to getting what you want in life is just has to come back to this allowing yourself to believe, to just tune out all the negativity that's out there, to just simply surround yourself with people that that will believe in you, and don't kill ideas before you've given them an opportunity to prosper. So, allow yourself to believe. And I think the last thing is that I think so important, and that we're losing a bit through the use of technology. I mean, you and I have built a relationship. I feel like I've known you for 10 years in this one conversation, but we know how to do it, man. Like we recognize the values and common stuff like that. But I think it's really important that we work, that everybody work at building relationships. There's so much focus on networks. I want to get a network of 1,000 contacts, because if I have this many people that are in my network, that I've got something. I'd rather have 2 people that I had a really good relationship with than 1,000 people that I barely know. So build relationships, and you do that by providing value to people. Like, what can I do for you today? And if I do something for you 3 days in a row, I'm not going to have to ask, you to do something for me. You're going to ask me. I mean, it's just, and because collaboratively, this is what I'm seeing, and I'm so encouraged by some of the young entrepreneurs I've had on my show, man. I mean, there's some cool, amazing people in their early 20s. They're just rocking it, and they're happy. Some of them are making lots of money. Some of them are, making, enough to get through next week. You could not tell the difference by talking to them. The smiles are from ear to ear. And I've got a lot of hope. I mean, I think that the generations that are coming up, I feel a bit for the millennials and the ones that are just right behind them, because I think they kind of got caught in a tsunami here. And but it's not too late. That's the other thing. That's 4, I know, but it's not too late. It's never too late. Change is always possible. It's always possible.
Tim, where can everybody go to learn more, and to learn more about your philosophies and get into more of the screw the naysayers philosophy?
Right on. Thank you for that. So this is always fun to say. You just head over to www.screwthenaysayers.com, and you can pretty much get everything there. I've got right now up there, I've got a free download on the ultimate checklist to be a happy entrepreneur that I should have had in the back of my head, but been doing a lot of talking these days. But that's a cool little thing, and a little secret there. I'm actually popping out some short little 3-4 minute videos that will come with that for free to anybody who downloads that. They can find out about my book there, and I'm going to soon be launching some sort of online community to see if we can't gather together. I'd like to say it this way, Ty. I mean, naysayers travel in packs, and I think it's about time that we started doing the same thing. So maybe we got to get together someplace where we can no naysayers allowed, and all we do is support people that want to live their dreams.
I love it. So Tim, thank you so much again for coming on with us today. I really enjoyed having you.
It's awesome. I can't thank you enough.
And everybody, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you visit screwthenaysayers.com. You can even say it out loud. It's fun to say, screwthenaysayers.com. I'll also make sure that link is on our show resources page. And while you're there, make sure you grab that checklist, the ultimate checklist to being a happy entrepreneur. There's so much cool stuff on Tim's site and on a social link. So I'm going to go ahead and include those in the show resources page as well. Thank you all very much. Make sure you visit screwthenaysayers.com and have a great day. Thanks, everybody.